Hi everybody, Claudia here with Healthy Preparedness. In this video, I want to share with you 11 food storage treasures. These treasures are ones that I've come across, I've learned, I've come to value, and I feel like will make a huge difference in the amount of nutrition that we're able to get from our food storage. We want to be able to get a generous amount of nutrients from our food storage. In the event of a prolonged disaster, infectious diseases are the #1 cause of death during a disaster. The food and fuel that we're using to keep our body going is what will be the preventative to these infectious diseases that are running rampant around us. What are we getting out of our food storage? A lot of us have just the basics stored, and that's a really great thing, but not only can we add to that, but we can also use those basics and do some incredible things with those. The scriptures have told us that there are treasures that we can learn, treasures of knowledge that will be valuable to us, and that should we learn these things, especially once it comes to food, the destroying angel will pass us by. Now, there are no guarantees, of course, but I truly do believe that these treasures are something that we need to learn, that we need to start incorporating, or that we need to at least understand or have the information of that, the seed to that planted in our minds, so that should we need to turn to these things, we can turn to them. In this video, I'm going to go over each of those 11 treasures briefly. I will be creating a video for each one of these to go through each one of these steps more thoroughly. So, food storage treasure #1 is store a variety of grains. Most of us have these basic stored. So we have our wheat, we have our oats, we have our white rice. But what we need to understand is that there are an array of beautiful, very beneficial, nutrient-dense grains that are out there, and we should store a variety of them. When we do so, we are able to tap into the broad spectrum of nutrients that these grains are able to provide us. Food storage treasure #2 is mixing grains. When we mix a variety of grains and some legumes like lentils or some other beans together and blend them up either in a soup or in a bread-like food, all these nutrients work synergistically together, and it's said that when we combine these grains and these legumes together, then it is able to create a protein that is comparable to meat. So I think of situations where we may not have meat, we may not have just good amounts of protein or just energy-sustaining foods. When we combine these grains, they help provide that for us. So some of these grains that we combine together, there is no exact recipe, but some of them can be rice and our wheat and millet and amaranth and lentils. That's a good mixture right there. There are others as well, and I'll go into more detail about that in the video that I have coming up about that. And I'll also show some basic recipes. How can we use that for soups or for things like cookies or muffins or even breads? Food storage treasure #3. If we take a step back and look at all the grains that we have in our food storage and realize that we can increase the nutrients in these grains by up to 2,000%, our whole perspective changes as to what we have stored. When we realize that we can tap into the nutrients in this type of incredible way, in the grains that we have stored, we can clearly see that what we have aren't just simple grains. It is literally a gold mine of nutrition waiting to be unlocked. And tapping into this level of nutrients from these grains that we have stored in our food storage today is as simple as soaking the grains in water overnight, rinsing that off, keeping it drained, keeping the wet grains drained, and then rinsing them twice a day. And you grow an abundant amount of nutrient-rich, enzyme-rich, micronutrient-rich plants that can provide us the nutrients that we're needing to help us thriving during a disaster situation. There's more to that too if we're in a situation where our gardens we're just growing a garden, having a garden isn't an option because it's either too cold outside or because there are hungry, ravenous people outside. We can have our own indoor garden inside to make sure we have those fresh, live nutrients that our bodies need in order to fully thrive. Food storage treasure number 4, nutritionally bioavailable breads. We have our wheat. We understand things that we can do with it. I have another video coming out that's really going to go over wheat. Okay, we have wheat, what do we do with it? But there's a process that can be done when we make our bread or bread-like foods that will make those nutrients more bioavailable to us. 2 simple processes are the soak dough method. That's just where you allow the dough to sit in its wet state, and you also have some sort of cultured substance in it like sour cream or buttermilk or yogurt or water kefir or Rejuvelac, something. All of those I'll go over as to how you can make your own so that you can add a live probiotic rich substance into the dough mixture. And as it sits there, the phytic acid is broken down, the protein's broken down, the gluten's broken down. It becomes what I consider to be, and I know this sounds gross, but it just makes sense in my mind, a pre-digested food. When something is pre-digested, it's easier to digest and we get more of those nutrients from it because of the form that it's in. Food storage treasure number 5 is upgrading the basics. A lot of us have the basics in our food storage, but what can we do to upgrade a lot of those so that we have more nutrition that we can get out of those? So those things would include things like honey. We get honey from the grocery store, but let's make sure that it is true raw honey. Honey is a sacred substance and it is meant more for just sweetening our foods or having something a little delicious or a little treat or snack. It is a medicine. It can be used for coughs and for sore throats and for ulcers and for wounds even. It is a medicine, and we should make sure that it is in its pure, raw, unadulterated state. Some other foods that we can increase or upgrade so that we increase the nutrition include foods like rice. If you have white rice, also consider storing brown rice. There are some tricks to storing brown rice, but it can be done. Other foods would include salt. Instead of storing just regular table salt, which is not something that is nutritious to us at all, store mineral salt. These are all things that I'll be going over in the video. Food storage treasure number 6 is nutrient-packed superfoods. Store some of these superfoods in your food storage. These would include foods like moringa powder, which I've talked about. I have a video about just moringa because I love it so much. Moringa provides us with so much nutrition. In third world countries, they're simply sprinkling it onto whatever food these poverty-stricken people are eating and having remarkable results with that. And it's just simply because they're getting the nutrients into their body that their body needs. It will do the same for us during a disaster situation. Other superfoods would include things like bee pollen or goji berries. Goji berries are something that we can easily grow ourselves in our own backyard. They are the most nutritious berry on the planet, and we can grow this in our backyard. Let's take advantage of that. Food storage number 7 is nutritional drinks. With all the food that we have in our food storage, there are drinks, liquids that we can make using these foods that will be very beneficial to us. Some of these include things like an electrolyte drink. If somebody's electrolytes are low because they have been sick or because they've been working really hard, what can we mix together? Some basic, simple ingredients can we mix together from our food storage to create a restorative electrolyte drink? Or other drinks like beet kvass. We can use beets that we've grown in our backyard, add some salt, add some water, create a lacto-fermented beet kvass drink that is replenishing to the cells. It's restorative, it's nutritious. Other drinks would also include things like Rejuvelac, when we take our grains and we create a drink with that, and it's nutritious and it contains probiotics, and it also is just fortifying and builds us up. There are a handful of liquids, of nutritionally rich liquids or drinks that we can make using the food storage that we have. Food storage treasure number 8 would be heirloom seeds and what I call garden boosters. Okay, heirloom seeds are definitely important. We don't want seeds where we plant them, we grow them, we eat them, and that's it. We need seeds that will grow plants, that will produce seeds so that we can create more gardens and more crops with those seeds. Heirloom seeds are a must. But most of us aren't master gardeners. So if we're in a disaster situation and we're relying on the food that we grow in our own backyard, but we are terrible at gardening or just don't really have it down yet, we really need to consider getting what I call garden boosters into our home so we can use those during a disaster situation. There's a handful of them that we can use. Some of them include like the Mitt Lighter gardening mix. There's another mix that I know of that I just recently came across, or something even as simple as azomite powder. There are substances that we could use to really give our garden a boost to make sure that it is providing bountiful and generous amounts of fruits and vegetables so that we can live off of that. Food storage treasure number 9 is lacto-fermented produce. So we've grown a plentiful, hopefully plentiful amount of produce in our garden. We have more than we can eat, and we don't have a way to store it because it's warm outside, it will just go bad. So how do we store this produce? There's a process called lacto-fermentation where you simply use water and salt to store your produce long term, 6 to 12 months, depending on the weather, depending on the temperature. And by doing this, it not only preserves this produce, but it actually increases the nutrition in it. It makes the nutrition more bioavailable to us, and we're getting good bacteria with it. It's an amazing process that is definitely something that we should know about. Food storage treasure number 10 is healthy fats. I feel like this is important enough of a subject that it deserves to be a food storage treasure. Fats are incredibly important to our overall well-being. Our brain, our liver, our cells, they all have fat. They need fat to be able to restore itself, to be able to stay healthy. It affects our moods. It affects our ability to deal with stress, to recover. And if we're getting the right kind of fats, we are better able to absorb the photons, the healing rays from the sun. Not only does that help us produce and store vitamin D in a much better and more effective way, but it also is just making sure that we are just getting the overall benefits that we can get from the sun if we have those rich, healthy fats in our cells. And I'll be covering what those fats are, but a lot of these we can actually grow in our own backyard from flax seeds or chia seeds or plants like purslane or other plants like broccoli or Brussels sprouts even. Let's understand where we can get these fats from and make sure that we're able to either grow them or that we're at least storing some of them so that we can benefit from those. Food storage treasure number 11 is cooking supplies. So I don't go into this a ton, but I do feel like it's important for us to understand what we can do to cook our food storage foods inside our own home. So that we aren't just grilling up a big barbecue outside and having that smell go throughout the neighborhood of starving people, so that we can just kind of hole up and make good, wholesome foods in our own home and be able to preserve fuel at the same time. So there are just a few little things that I like to share in that one, but I feel like it's important enough that it also deserves to be a food storage treasure. So all 11 of these treasures I will be covering in individual videos. Some of them I may be going into a bit more and creating actual like DVDs about them because they may be extensive enough that I feel like that may be necessary. But a lot of this information is also found in my food storage book titled Food Storage Powerhouse. At the moment, I only have an ebook form of that, and I actually want to add to that book, so I can say that it's not as finished as I'd like it to be. It's $7 right now if you'd like to at least look through that. It's on the store page of our blog. But coming this spring of 2016, I will have it in paperback form and with more recipes and more information. There's just more that I wanted to share since I put that book together. So hopefully this information has been valuable to you. These treasures truly are important. We really need to take into consideration what exactly we're going to be feeding our families. I know that a lot of people focus on having these delicious and elaborate meals during a disaster, and I just really admire that. I tend to be rather basic and boring, I think, sometimes, but for me, I really just want to focus on the nutrients that we're getting into our body and how we can go about viewing our food storage in an entirely different way, looking at it from a nutritional standpoint and how it will sustain us and help us thrive during disaster and keep those immune systems up, keep those elimination systems open, and keep those stress defense shields built up so that we can better thrive during a disaster. Thanks for watching this video. I'll have more coming soon. I'll see you next time. Bye.